Hello, Kansas and Western fans. It's time for this week's progress report on my work on the Holcomb Power Plant scene. I've been doing these now as a kind of a mid 2 week update for the poll results that everyone voted for this past Monday, just to touch base and see how it's going. Anyway, as you can see here, I've got one of these light hubs from Woodland Scenics just plugged. You can see in my thumbnail, I do have at least one light working. I was going to have two. You can see the hole there, but that ended up right inside a cross member underneath the layout. So that hole didn't work. So I'll have to fill that in. But what I'm trying to light here is the end of track for the plant, thinking that when we're backing cars into these spurs, we don't want to go too far. And although there are, stoppers, rail stops, we obviously don't want to ram into those if we can help it. So I thought lighting the end of track, at least in this area here, would be helpful for that. And one thing I want to talk about when I'm making decisions about this here, let me get the lights off so we can see. I just said, let's get the lights off so we can see. That's funny. All right. Maybe next time I'll say, let's turn the lights off so you can see what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I wanted to have one light on this side and one light on this side, thinking if maybe a conductor was on this side of the train, there wouldn't be enough light for him to see these. And that's when I realized, am I overthinking this too much like I do on many other things? But I kind of thought, this single light here in the middle, and this isn't glued in by any stretch. I just kind of have it sitting here because I've been playing with how do I want this lamp to show, right? Which way would I want it to be turned? And now I'm almost thinking this is the best way. But I don't want to put the lights in or permanently yet. This one could just be laid down. And I might not ever, because as long as I can get it to stand fairly straight, what's the point? That way, if you run into it, it doesn't break. You just knock it over and set it back up. But I still have to put a background in on this, and I definitely don't want to worry about working around a whole bunch of these things sticking up. Anyway, let's turn the lights back on and talk about what else I've been working on. Also, I have the light hub sitting out here just because I was just testing this light and hadn't gone to the point of drilling out a hole. This is going to be the storage part of the Portland cement plant, and that's where I'm going to house at least this one light hub. I might do them all for this whole scene here because it's a big space, easy to hide a lot of those things. And it's also not going to have any internal lights itself. It has just two windows on the end, but I don't know if that's worth lighting those up. But as you can see, I've got a hole marked there where I'm going to drill out to route this in like I did with the power plant. So that's just going to hide in there. That way I can just lift the building out whenever I need to mess with those, and it's not that big a deal. Anyway, moving on down, you can also see I got the fascia installed. And when I did that, I was able to kind of fill in this little corner here with a piece of foam and integrate that. So that's a little bit more finished. Plus it gives me a little more room to add some scenery to build this transition point out a little bit. And you can see it's all installed there. I got my panels reinstalled and my controller pockets. I just haven't got the labels back and reinstalled. And then in here, in terms of concrete work, what I've done is I've gone ahead and added all of the rest of the forms, these foam double stick tape forms that I've been using along the entire perimeter where I want concrete laid. And then I also added forms for the concrete road that's going to come into the plant. I stopped there because I haven't even thought about how I want any kind of roads in this area to be laid out. So I probably won't even go that far. I'll probably just go here at this transition point for now in terms of adding concrete. Because again, I'm just not sure how I want to do that yet. So we'll just leave it there. But then you can see how I've crossed the tracks for an access road to get to where the crew station is going to be in here. And you might wonder, is it a good idea to have the road cut across the tracks in the middle? You can see I had kind of an apron drawn out here to cross further up until I realized that the people in charge of parking cars on these spurs are the crew that parks their car here. So it's going to be in their own best interest to make sure things are arranged in the yard that they're not blocking their escape route to get out of work. So that's when I stopped worrying so much about having the road cross over the tracks. And I decided to make my life a little bit easier instead of snaking it through this area here to kind of shorten it up and put it here. And there's really not that much blocking going on because of how close it is to these turnouts. The only one that might be impacted is this little spur here in the foreground because it's kind of right in the middle of it. But I am treating this little spur in the foreground as just kind of like a working spur. If they're trying to reorganize cars on all these tracks and just need to shove some somewhere temporarily, that they would use that track for that purpose. Anyway, so you can see the forms here. I'm still installing the forms on the inside of the tracks for the concrete that's going to go there. I got a little bit tricky because when I was laying out the road here, I wasn't 100% thinking about how I would have to do the inner track forms. And so you can see I've kind of just put those little sections there to get my concrete down to match the edge of the road. This little port here right next to the frog is probably just not going to be appropriately done because that's just too narrow probably to do concrete at all. So I might just have to fudge that a little bit, but I'm not worried about it. My railroad, my look, it'll be what it'll be. Anyway, I did try to put forms down the middle here for the road, but then realized all of this is going to be concrete all the way down. So I don't need any inside forms for the road because it's all going to be concrete. And then you can see here, these are like styrene bases, styrene panels, whatever, that I glued down for the base of parts of the plant. I'm going to integrate the concrete that I'm pouring using drywall mud right into those bases. So it should be a more or less seamless transition. I mean, there will be a seam from styrene to drywall mud, but it'll just look like a seam that's meant to be there. But all that's going to be integrated into there, and then all this area will just be gravel yard for vehicles to maneuver. Anything else I've done? I guess not. But there is one thing I want to point out that for me is kind of an interesting milestone. So if you've seen past videos, this spur that you see here that comes off the main line serves two purposes. But one of those purposes is actually a programming track that you can see that passes here by my workbench. And what I've been parking here for the last 2 years, basically, since this thing was built, is cars that need to have basic weathering done. And by basic weathering done, I mean paint those trucks and wheels, those bright silver wheels and those gloss black plastic trucks, because that stands out to me more than anything on an unweathered car. And it's something that's fairly quick to do, and I don't have to have any really artistic license with it. I just paint them and then move on. And I also paint the couplers, sometimes to the point where they don't work, but that's okay. That can be fixed later. But these cars that you see here, these 5 cars, are the last in my collection of over 250 freight cars that need to have this work done. So once that's done, that'll be quite a milestone. And every time we look at cars on the layout, they will all look like this. So anyway, wanted to share that. Kind of excited about it. I guess that's about it for now. We're going to continue work on this scene here for the next week. See how much concrete I can get poured since my forms are pretty well done. And I guess that's about it for now. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments below, or any supportive remarks or ideas, leave those. And we will check in with you next week. Thanks for watching.